Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to our channel Pakistan Zindabad, the next world superpower. This is episode 33, and today we are diving deep into some foundational research from Zahir Ahmed Mir's incredible book, Quaid-e-Azam of Pakistan. We're going to unpack a really powerful idea, the institutional blueprint that Muhammad Ali Jinnah saw as the literal backbone of the nation. Okay, let's get right into it.
Right off the bat, this quote, "This is everything." This is the key that unlocks Jinnah's entire vision for Pakistan. Think about it. He understood that while passionate slogans and powerful speeches can ignite the fire of a nation, they can't keep it burning. That fire needs a structure, a fireplace to contain it and give it purpose. For Jinnah, those structures were institutions. This wasn't just a catchy line, it was the architectural plan for a state built to last.
So what did that architectural plan actually look like? Well, it was a foundation built on 5 incredibly strong pillars. Jinnah's vision for Pakistan was a state built on these interlocking institutions. You have the administrative machinery, the engine room that keeps the country running day to day. Then the constitutional framework, which is the rule book that everyone agrees to play by. You need a legal system to enforce those rules fairly for everyone, a political process so the people's voices can be heard, and finally, a moral compass to make sure leaders don't lose their way. These weren't separate ideas, they were meant to be an interwoven, unshakable foundation.
Now, to really understand what happened later, we first have to appreciate the genius of the original design. So in this first section, we're going to explore the ideal, the crystal-clear blueprint that Jinnah laid out for how the state was supposed to function.
At the very heart of this blueprint is the idea of an institutional state. So what on earth does that actually mean? It's simple, really. It means the system is king, the rules are in charge, not the rulers. Decisions get made based on fair, established processes that apply to everyone equally, not based on who you know or what powerful person feels like doing that day. It's the difference between a real football match, with a referee and clear rules, and just a chaotic kickabout in the park, where the biggest guy makes the calls. Jinnah wanted the referee and the rulebook, always.
And this chart, it just lays it out so perfectly. The ideal versus the forces that can tear it all down. On the left, that's Jinnah's vision. The office of the Prime Minister, for example, is more important than the person who holds it. The rules are more binding than any personal relationship. And the system of justice is bigger and more enduring than any single powerful personality. But on the right, well, that's the rejection of the vision. You get nepotism, favoritism, personality worship, and all those informal, backroom deals that completely undermine the system.
And what was the end goal of all this? A state that is professional, disciplined, and predictable. A country where key institutions, like the judiciary, the civil service, the police, can all do their jobs independently without political interference. The idea was that they would all work together in harmony, like a well-rehearsed orchestra. This is what creates stability. It's what allows for real, long-term progress. And most importantly, it's what ensures justice for every single citizen, not just the ones with money or connections.
But after Jinnah's passing, a really tragic shift started to happen. That carefully drawn-up blueprint began to be ignored, and the foundation started to crack. This next section is all about that turn, the slow, damaging shift from a state of institutions to a state run by powerful individuals.
And this, right here, is the absolute core of the tragedy. Power, which was supposed to live inside impartial state structures, was slowly but surely pulled out of them and gathered into the hands of a few powerful people. Decisions that should have been based on procedure and law became personal choices. And slowly, the system began to serve the people in charge instead of serving the nation. This was the fundamental turning point, the moment things started to go wrong.
So what did that look like in reality? Well, the first domino to fall was the bureaucracy, the engine of the state. It got politicized. Suddenly, getting a promotion wasn't about merit anymore. It was about loyalty. Competence was replaced by connections. And when you stop promoting your best and brightest, the entire machinery of government just starts to grind to a halt.
Next, the judiciary began to lose its way. The core principle of constitutionalism, the idea that the Constitution is the supreme law that no one can break, was sidelined. Instead, we started hearing about the doctrine of necessity, and this became a convenient legal excuse for bending or even breaking the Constitution to suit the needs of those in power. It set an incredibly dangerous precedent.
Then, you see the decay in law enforcement. As political interference grew and grew, the police lost their professional independence. Instead of upholding the law for everyone, they started being used as a tool to target political opponents. And what does that do? It absolutely shatters public trust. People no longer see the police as protectors, but as enforcers for the powerful. And while all this was happening at the top,
Power at the grassroots level was completely suffocated. The idea of strong local governments, which allow communities to solve their own problems, was dismantled in favor of more and more centralization. All power started flowing to the capital, leaving towns and villages feeling unheard and disenfranchised.
And what's the final, inevitable result of all this decay? Accountability becomes selective. When you've compromised the bureaucracy, the courts, and the police, there's no one left with the independence and strength to hold the powerful to account. The rules still exist on paper, sure, but in reality, they only apply to the ordinary people, not the elite.
This brings us to what is really the fatal blow. Think about it. An institution by its very nature has to be neutral. A court that picks sides, a civil service that only serves one political party. These aren't really institutions anymore. They're just tools being used by the powerful. The very moment their neutrality is gone, their legitimacy and their purpose die right along with it.
Okay, so that all sounds pretty bleak. I know. But here's the crucial thing. The blueprint still exists. The original plans are still there. So, in our final section, we're going to shift from talking about the problem to exploring the path forward, how to actually start rebuilding the nation's backbone.
Let's come back to that central metaphor because it is so important. What does a backbone actually do for a body? It provides structure, it protects the spinal cord, the central communication system, it gives you the strength to stand tall and the flexibility to move. A state without strong institutions is exactly like a body without a spine. It becomes a collapsed, formless heap, unable to protect itself, unable to stand on its own, and unable to move forward with any purpose. It just crumbles under the slightest pressure.
So what does that path to rebuilding actually look like? Well, it's not a secret formula. It's a return to those original founding principles. First, you have to reestablish the rule of law, making it absolutely supreme and making sure it applies to every single person, no exceptions. Second, you have to depoliticize the bureaucracy, making merit the one and only path to advancement. Third, you must guarantee judicial independence so the courts can act as the guardians of the Constitution without fear or favor. And fourth, you have to empower local governance again, giving power back to the communities on the ground.
And we're going to end with this thought, this question for all of us. Rebuilding these institutions is not a simple task. It is a monumental challenge that requires enormous political will, public demand, and a shared national consensus. So the question we have to ask ourselves is this. If institutions are truly a nation's backbone, what does it really take to heal a broken spine? The answer to that question, well, that will define the future.
Have you ever stopped to think about what really makes a nation strong and sovereign? I mean, is it the size of its army, its economy, or is it something deeper, something more fundamental? Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful argument from Zahir Ahmad Mir's work, which suggests that the true strength of a nation is actually built on the foundation of its institutions. This sentence right here, this is the core idea, the big thesis we're going to unpack. It completely reframes how we think about a country. It argues that a nation's real power isn't about its borders or population, but about the invisible architecture that holds everything together, its institutions. You know, when that architecture is solid, the whole house stands tall. But when it starts to crack, everything is at risk. So this is our jumping-off point for understanding this blueprint for Pakistan. But before we can even talk about building something new and strong, we have to get brutally honest about what happens when things fall apart. This isn't just some abstract idea. It's about the real, daily struggles that people face when systems fail them. To figure out the path forward, we first have to look squarely at the reality of a broken system and understand what's truly at stake. Just look at this slide. It paints a picture of two completely different realities, two possible futures. Over on the left, you see the domino effect of weak institutions. Corruption isn't just a headline. It's like a hidden tax on everything, making life harder for everyone. When justice takes years, people lose all faith in fairness. And economic instability, it makes it impossible for families or businesses to even plan for next year, let alone the future. It's a vicious downward spiral. But then you look to the right, and you see the alternative. Strong institutions create an environment where businesses actually feel confident enough to invest and create jobs, where people believe the law applies to everyone, and where a genuine sense of national pride can actually grow. So, if that's the problem, what's the ideal we should be shooting for? Well, the blueprint we're looking at argues that we don't need to invent something new. The original vision for the nation can act as a North Star. It's about getting back to a foundational principle of governance, a vision of a modern, democratic state that was there right from the start. And this is the heart of that vision, a rule-based institutional order. I know, it sounds a little academic, but let's break it down. It basically means a system where the rules are the same for everybody, from the person selling food on the street to a government minister. It means a contract is honored because that's what the law says, not because you know the right people. It means decisions get made based on facts and expertise, not on who your family is or what political party you belong to. Honestly, this is the essential operating system for any country that wants to be stable and prosperous. Okay, so understanding the problem and knowing the goal, that's one thing. But how in the world do you actually get there? How do you even start the massive task of rebuilding these foundations? That is the billion-dollar question we're turning to right now. So, this is where we get to the nuts and bolts. The blueprint lays out a very methodical plan, focusing on what it calls the 5 foundational pillars of the state. The argument is that you can't just fix one thing and hope for the best. See, these 5 pillars all support each other. If one starts to crumble, it puts a ton of stress on all the others. This isn't about a quick fix, it's about a total systematic reconstruction from the ground up. Let's dig into the first one. First up, pillar number 1, the civil service, the bureaucracy. You can think of this as the administrative spine of the entire nation. It's the engine room that puts policies into action, delivers public services, and just keeps the whole machine of the state running day to day, from collecting taxes to running schools and hospitals. So, how do you fix a broken spine? The blueprint says you go back to basics. First, merit-based recruitment. Simple, right? The smartest, most capable people get the jobs, not the ones with the best connections. That alone would be a game changer. Second, impartiality and discipline. A civil servant's job is to apply the law fairly, no matter who's in charge. And that brings us to the most crucial point of all, serving the state, not the politicians. The bureaucracy's loyalty has to be to the Constitution and the nation's long-term interests. That's how you get a stable, professional administration that provides continuity, no matter which government is in power. All right, let's move on to the second pillar, which is the ultimate guardian of that whole rule-based order we just talked about, the judiciary. If the civil service is the spine, then you could say the judiciary is the conscience of the state. It's their job to interpret the laws and make sure justice is done. And the reforms needed here, they are absolutely fundamental. First up, constitutional purity. This just means that judges have to base their decisions on the law and the Constitution, period. Not on politics, not on public opinion. Next, speedy and accessible justice. This is huge. It's about making sure an average person can get a fair decision in months, not decades. Because let's be honest, waiting 10 years for a decision on your property dispute isn't justice. Of course, for any of that to happen, you need total independence from influence. Judges have to be free from pressure, whether it's from politicians, powerful businesses, or anyone else. And finally, all of this rests on the moral courage of individual judges to just do the right thing, not the easy thing. Without these 4 elements, the rule of law is just a nice-sounding phrase. And wow, this quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It shows why this stuff is so critical. When a court case drags on forever, it's not just an inconvenience, it's a symptom of a much deeper failure. When people lose faith that they can get a fair and timely decision, they start to lose faith in the state itself. It's a quiet, slow erosion that can lead to a total breakdown of social order. Okay, on to pillar 3, police and law enforcement. Now this is a big one. These are the folks who ensure security and order at home. For the average person, they are the most visible face of the government, and how they behave shapes public trust more than almost anything else. The goal here is to completely flip the script, to transform law enforcement from a force that feels like it's there to control people to a service that's there to protect people. Step 1 is depoliticized policing. This means a police officer's job is to enforce the law fairly, not to do favors for a local politician. That has to be backed up with modern training and equipment, so they have the skills to handle situations properly. And, absolutely crucially, strict accountability. When an officer breaks the law, there has to be a clear, transparent process to handle it. That's how you build trust and make sure the police's main job becomes protecting everyone's fundamental rights. All right, pillar 4. This one is all about bringing power closer to the people. Local government. The whole idea is to empower governance at the grassroots level, so it can actually respond to what communities really need. And the logic here is really simple. The people who are most affected by a decision should be the ones making it. The blueprint calls for giving local governments real administrative authority, the power to actually fix the local roads or manage the local schools.
You pair that with financial autonomy, giving them their own budgets so they don't have to beg the central government for every little thing. And when you have elected local leadership, they are directly accountable to their neighbors. If the trash doesn't get picked up, the voters they see at the market every day will let them know. That direct community accountability is a powerful weapon against the kind of corruption and laziness that can happen in far-off, centralized government.
And that brings us to our fifth and final pillar. This one acts as the essential watchdog for the entire system, the regulatory and oversight bodies. These are the groups whose whole job is to keep everyone else honest, from government departments to public officials. Now, for these watchdogs to have any teeth at all, the blueprint says there are a few things that are totally non-negotiable. They have to be independent and professional, filled with experts, not political bodies. Their work has to be transparent so we can all see what they're doing. But the absolute key to the whole thing is being insulated from political control. I mean, think about it. A watchdog that can be fired by the very person it's supposed to be watching, that's not a watchdog, that's a pet. You can't have real oversight without that firewall. And this quote, it just nails it. The job of these bodies isn't just to catch bad guys, they're a defensive wall. They act as a shield, protecting the Constitution and the rule of law from being weakened by people in power. You could even say they're like the immune system of a healthy country, designed to spot and neutralize threats from the inside. Okay, so we've looked at the problem, we've walked through all 5 pillars of the solution. So what's the big picture here? What's the ultimate takeaway from this entire blueprint? Let's bring it all into sharp focus. You know, when you lay it all out, it really boils down to this clear 3-step logic. First, you have to admit there's a crisis and understand how damaging it is. Second, you have to commit to that vision of a neutral, fair, rule-based system as your North Star. And finally, you have to do the hard, systematic work of rebuilding those 5 pillars: the civil service, the judiciary, the police, local government, and the oversight bodies. As you can see, one step leads right into the next. It's a holistic plan. You can't skip a step because every single pillar depends on the others to stay strong. And so that brings us right back where we started, with this one final question for you to think about. Is a nation's destiny really written by its institutions? The argument we've unpacked today suggests that, yeah, maybe it is. Leaders come and go, political parties rise and fall, but the enduring character of a nation, its prosperity, its fairness, its ability to survive, that's ultimately decided by the strength and integrity of the foundations it chooses to build. It's a pretty powerful idea to chew on.
All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to explore a really powerful idea for national transformation, and it's all drawn from Zahir Ahmad Mir's book, Quaid-e-Azam of Pakistan. We're talking about a detailed roadmap for institutional revival. And look, this isn't about quick fixes or temporary solutions. This is about rebuilding the entire engine of the state from the ground up.
Now, this sentence right here, this is the heart of the entire argument. Just let that sink in for a second. The goal isn't to find some perfect, flawless leader, no. The goal is to build a system so solid, so fair, so robust that it literally doesn't matter who is in charge. Why? Because the institutions themselves guarantee stability. It's a complete shift away from focusing on personalities and instead focusing on systemic strength. And really, this is the big question the book asks us. What would it actually look like to build a truly self-sustaining state? You know, a nation where the rule of law is a guarantee for everyone, and where public services work for all citizens, not just the ones with connections. The book argues that this is the path to achieving the original vision for Pakistan, a state built on the unshakable foundation of its institutions.
So to really understand how we get there, we're going to follow this simple roadmap. First, we'll look at this idea of moving beyond individuals. Then we'll unpack the 5-point blueprint for change. After that, we'll see how to restore the state's core, how to enforce the rules, and finally, we'll get a picture of what that fully restored state actually looks like.
Okay, so let's start with the core philosophy. Before we even get into the nuts and bolts of the plan, we have to grasp this foundational idea, the supremacy of institutions over individuals. And believe me, this isn't just a catchy phrase, it's the guiding principle for every single step that comes after.
So, notice how this defines success. Success isn't winning an election. It's not a charismatic speech. Success is when the system just runs. It means an ordinary citizen can trust that when they deal with the state, whether it's the police, the courts, or a local office, it's going to be a fair and predictable experience. Governance delivers on its promises, not because of some benevolent leader, but because the machinery of the state is actually designed to do its job.
So if that's the destination, the big question is, how do we get there? Well, this brings us to the practical, actionable plan at the heart of the book, the 5-point blueprint. You can think of this as the institutional reconstruction roadmap, and it's designed to systematically transform the state, literally from the ground up.
And here they are, the 5 pillars: depolitization, digitization, professionalization, accountability, and checks and balances. Each one of these is an absolutely critical part of the whole structure. You can't just pick one or two that you like. They're all designed to work together to reinforce each other. So let's break down what each of these really means. The first 3 pillars, depolitization, digitization, and professionalization, are all about one thing: restoring the core functions of the state. Think of it like a deep cleaning phase for a house that's been neglected. You have to clear out all the decay and rebuild the fundamental machinery so it can finally function the way it was always intended to.
First up, depoliticization. What does this mean? It means drawing a very hard, very clear line between politics and administration. See, when the civil service, the police, or the courts are influenced by political agendas, they just can't serve the public impartially. So this is about making sure that appointments, promotions, and daily operations are all based on merit and the law, not on political loyalty. This ensures the institutions serve the state, not just the party in power.
Next up, digitization. And this is so much more than just putting government forms online. It's actually a powerful weapon for transparency. When processes are digitized, you reduce human discretion, and that's exactly where corruption loves to hide. It makes government actions traceable. It makes them accountable. A digital system can't be easily swayed by a bribe, which creates a level playing field for every single citizen.
The third pillar of restoring the core is professionalization. In simple terms, this is about making sure the people running the institutions are actually competent and qualified for the job. It means setting rigorous standards, mandatory training, tough exams, and regular performance audits for all leaders. This is how you build a culture of excellence, making public service a field for the best and brightest, not just the best connected.
So, once the core is restored, once you've done that deep clean, how do you make sure it stays clean? That's where the final 2 pillars come in. You can think of these as the enforcement mechanisms, the rules that maintain discipline and order within this newly rebuilt system.
Now, this is a really critical distinction the book makes. It draws a sharp line between 2 types of accountability. On one hand, you have political accountability, which is often used as a weapon. It's based on politics, on personalities. But what we're aiming for is institutional accountability, an impartial system based on clear laws and transparent processes that apply to everyone equally, no matter how powerful they are.
And this quote is the mantra for a fair system. Accountability must follow law, not politics. It's as simple as that. When this principle is actually upheld, citizens can start to trust the system again because they know that justice isn't for sale and that no one, absolutely no one, is above the law. That's the bedrock of a stable society.
The final pillar is strengthening checks and balances. The book calls this the discipline of power, which is a great way to put it. The whole idea is to make sure no single institution can become all-powerful. The system is designed so that each branch of government keeps the others in check, forcing everyone to operate within their constitutional boundaries. This is what prevents the abuse of power and ensures the system itself remains supreme.
Okay, so we've walked through all 5 pillars. We've talked about the deep clean and the enforcement, so let's look at the final outcome. What does the nation actually look like once this revival is achieved? This is the vision of the state, fully restored.
And this is the result. This is the payoff. A nation where the system simply works, where the average citizen trusts the state because it's fair, it's predictable, a place where justice is a real, prevailing force, and governance actually delivers tangible services to the people. And when all of those things happen, the nation rises.
So if there is one core message to take away from all of this, it's this. Real, lasting national strength isn't built on the charisma of a leader or on fiery speeches. It's forged in the quiet, consistent, and disciplined functioning of impartial institutions. That is the only foundation for a truly great nation.
And we'll end with the book's final commanding statement. It's both a diagnosis and a prescription all in one. Restore institutions, and the state will restore itself. It's such a powerful idea, suggesting that the power to rebuild lies not in searching for new leaders,